How's everyone doing? Welcome back to another live stream. The crypto market still lacks a bit of direction. I would say we are in a massive area of no man's land on Bitcoin. We are below the 50-week moving average, but we are above the 200-week moving average. And for me, anywhere in between these two levels is quite a risky place to be. Because if you're shorting the market a lot, then there is always a chance that we have a bit of a relief rally, a bit of a dead cat bounce back up to the 50-week and then maybe reject, as we have done in the past. But if you're longing the market right now, there is a chance that Bitcoin will pull back to its 200-week moving average, as it typically does after losing the 50. So we are in a bit of a period of no man's land. I would say that overall we are leaning much more bearish than we are bullish. But typically we get short-term relief bounces, short-term dead cat bounces, whatever you want to call them, after losing the 50-week moving average. And we have lost it now. And you can see that previously when we've lost it, like this example here in 2021, we came down a bit. We had a big drop and then we came back up and then we found resistance at the 50-week moving average, which is your white line. And then we pull back to the 200-week moving average in the coming months. I think there's a strong probability that we will make some form of a move up here, maybe to the low 100K region, maybe to the mid to high 90s, and then get some form of a rejection and then finally pull back to the 200-week, as we always seem to do eventually. It is a guarantee at some point we will come down to the 200-week moving average. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And I believe we'll see it some point in 2026. And then I think we will see a rally up to around $200,000 per Bitcoin. Just right now, there's a lot of questions about liquidity. And we're going to go through some of the reasons why today is actually going to be a very important day. So smash the likes if you're joining into the live stream. I appreciate each and every single one of you being here today on this Wednesday. I want to quickly tell you about the biggest sale I've ever done for all of my membership options. It is linked down below. It's pinned in the comment section. Use the code Black Friday on any of my membership options at checkout. That applies to the VIP, the Mentor tier, and most importantly, the big bundle, which you can get for $2,799, reduced from $4,499. So massive, massive discount. This includes my real-time copy trading, and it also includes direct access to me, where you can call me and you can message me one-on-one, which is a very rare thing to have from, someone like myself. So I appreciate everyone being in the stream today. It's going to be a big day. We've got unemployment claims coming in at 5:30 p.m. The forecast is 226K. The previous was 220K. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the unemployment claims come in. That is obviously going to directly affect the odds of the Fed's decision in December, which has been very much hit or miss lately, right? If you just update it every day, you get a completely different figure. Right now, we're sitting at an 85% chance of a rate cut in December. It was only a week or so ago we were looking at it, and it was more than likely that they would pause. So one of the big names on the Fed was kind of indicating that we should get a cut. And I think Powell went with him because he is usually a Powell ally, but he was indicating that we should cut. So maybe that is the reason why the odds have swung so much in the direction of a cut now. And obviously that data we're going to get will impact the odds even further. Now, something that I haven't really talked about too much on this channel, very important, Bank of Japan's decision in December. That is going to be December 19th. And those odds are starting to change a little bit. You can see on Polymarket, the odds are starting to flip. In orange, you have the probability of no change. In blue, you have the probability of an increase. And they're starting to flip right now. We're getting a flippening of the odds for the Bank of Japan's decision. It seems like they're going to be increasing the interest rate. Now, that might sound to you like, who cares? Japan doesn't affect the markets. It absolutely does. If you go back and you see when the carry trade was unfolding, how that impacted markets, specifically liquidity dependent assets such as Bitcoin, it was not good. That's when we had that drop during the 8-month sideways to the low. That was because of the whole Japanese carry trade unwinding. And it seems like, I mean, it's 50-50, so we can't really lean too much in one direction. But as of right now, it seems like it's very, very possible they could actually go and increase their interest rate, which is going to be very bad for global liquidity, because a lot of people are using the low interest rates of Japan, and they're going to have to, they're going to have to stop borrowing, and they're going to have to pay off some of the loans and stuff. So interesting stuff. It means that there's going to be less liquidity in the system if that happens, which is not necessarily a good thing for an asset like Bitcoin, which is very much dependent on global liquidity. So that's a potential bearish catalyst, but you have a potential bullish catalyst in the fact that the Fed are going to be most likely cutting rates. So it really depends which one to you is more important. But I can see we've got Omar in the stream. How's it going, Omar? Mr. J. Marianne says, when it comes to Casper for next cycle, what's the first level? 2 cents? I don't quite understand your question, Marianne. CDUB, C-Dub, welcome to the stream. How's it going? Let's try and get some more likes on this live stream. The last one wasn't the best in terms of likes, but if we could get the likes up, that would really be appreciated. It helps out the channel more than people would know. But yeah, if we look at Bitcoin here, you can see it is right in the middle of no man's land, as I would call it. Anywhere below this, you've got to have kind of a bearish leaning. And then when we come and hit the 200, you've got to have a bullish leaning. But there is always that chance that this time is different. There's always a chance this time could be different. And the way how we would know that there's a solid chance of Bitcoin making a new all-time high is if it comes above the 50-week moving average and gets a confirmed close with volume and with impulsivity. As of right now, the 50-week moving average is at 102.5K. So that would be the level Bitcoin would need to get above with an impulsive move with volume in order to signal to me, yes, we are going higher. And this is not just a dead cat bounce. This is not just a lower high and a complacency shoulder, but rather this is an actual legitimate move to a new all-time high. That is how I would decipher that. That is how I would determine that. But until something like that happens, I believe we are in a Bitcoin bear market, and any move we have up is probably going to be relatively short-lived, or as Jerome Powell would say, short-lived, and then we will lead to a more macro pullback to the downside. So those are my opinions. Now, with all of this said, we've got to understand Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is very much a liquidity-driven asset, as I was alluding to earlier. And we do have some signals that liquidity is drying up in the short term, but in the more medium to long term, we have signals that liquidity is going to be injected into the market, with QE potentially coming from the Fed, with further rate cuts down the line, with the one big beautiful bill, which many people are saying would be stimulative, with the $2,000 potential stimulus checks. Many people are saying that will have an impact on the crypto market. It's obviously stimulative. It's in the name, stimulus check. And the new Fed chair, which, by the looks of it, is going to be much more of a Trump ally than Jerome Powell. Okay, and that therefore it looks like we're going to get more rate cuts, which is typically bullish for risk on assets. But quite often, by the time they cut rates, the cat's already out the bag, and you already have a pretty bad system in place with the labor market and stuff. Pretty bad situation already. So get your questions in the chat. Get your questions in the chat. It's going to be an interesting day indeed. Let's take a look at the short term for Bitcoin. So in the short term, we're seeing a little bit of a drop off here after a relatively good day on Sunday and Monday, but we're seeing a bit of a pullback again here. So let's look at the 4-hour on Bitcoin and see exactly what we are doing. So we found a low at 80,000. That was your platinum pocket, as Army Piper calls it. That is basically if the 786 fails, then you come down to the 886. And that is where 80K was. But obviously, we had a bit of a move, but honestly, I'm not going to call this an impulsive move. This was not an impulsive move. There was not enough volume for this to truly be like a strong impulsive bounce. And this actually concerns me for Bitcoin because, you know, when you're finding a bottom, you hope that you get a big impulsive bounce. And I'm afraid this move here is not a massive impulsive bounce. So I still have a bit of a bearish bias right now. I would be hoping for much more of a strong bounce than just this. Look, it's not over yet. We could go higher, and maybe I'll eat my words in a few days if we're much higher. But this bounce for me hasn't been like super impulsive. But we still have time. We've only just found the low here. I mean, if you look in April, we found the low April 9th. And then it was really the end of April when we started to see that big move up. So we found the low here, 20th of November. I would expect by the 10th of December for us to be in the night, well into the mid 90s, if this is truly, a bit of a move to the upside and not just a little fake out before we go lower. But either way, look, my view is the damages have been done. Bitcoin lost the 50 week. The damage has been done. That to me is a huge red flag. And it's not just the 50 week that we lost. A lot of people make out as if, oh, we only lost the 50. Everything else is intact. No. Everything else isn't intact. We lost the golden pocket. And we haven't even gotten close to reclaiming that at 92K. All right. We lost the center band of your Gaussian channel. We haven't really gotten too close to getting back above that. That's at 93K. So we lost a lot of levels, guys. Don't kid yourself into thinking the only thing we lost was the 50 week. That is just not the case. We lost multiple levels. The only thing we haven't lost yet that some, the bulls are pointing towards is the 74K level, which, don't get me wrong, they've got a case. 74K was a massive point of resistance in February, and it was a massive point of support in April. February of 24, I'm alluding to. Or March of 24. March of 24, April of 25. 74K has a lot of significance, right? But that's the only thing. That's really the only thing you can stand on if you're super bullish right now, is the fact that we haven't lost 74K. When/if we lose 74K, that is full confirmation then that we are in a bear market. Full confirmation, like unequivocal, undeniable. No one can deny at that point if you lose 74. And I believe we will lose 74 at some point. We're on our trajectory. We're on our path down to 74K. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen overnight. We're going to have fake outs. We're going to have tests. You're going to be tested. If you're sideline right now and you've got a lot of cash on the side or a lot of stables on the side like myself, there's going to be tests. They're not just going to bring us straight down to the 200 week. They're not going to do that. There's going to be tests along the way. They're going to trick you into being super bullish, right? That's what they always do. It's never easy in crypto. If anyone joined crypto and thought this space was easy, you went to the wrong place. Because it's not easy. But that's what I'm personally looking at right now. Like I said, we have the unemployment claims coming in a couple of hours. That's going to be big. We'll be monitoring that in the Discord, as always. And by the way, we have a brand new perk with the Discord, which is stock alerts. So you guys don't know, but I actually am heavily invested in the stock market. Not heavily, but it's a percentage of my net worth in the stock market. Not as much as what I've put in crypto, nowhere near as much, but there are a few stocks which I'm buying right now, and I have been buying in the last few weeks. So from now on, whenever I make a big purchase in the stock market, I'm going to be alerting my VIP Discord to that, so that you're not just getting my crypto trades, you're not just getting my crypto spot positions, but you're also getting my stock market positions, right? Because I've made some good money in the stock market this year. In fact, I made more money in the stock market than crypto. and I've invested way more into crypto. Yeah, I've made more in the stock market than crypto because some of the players I've invested in have done tremendously well. I bought Tesla at the bottom, and I bought TKO before that thing exploded. And right now, I'm actually positioning myself in Meta. I've been buying Meta a lot between kind of 580 to 620. That kind of region has been where I've been stacking it. And if you look at Meta right now, it's bouncing from a golden pocket. It's bouncing from a golden pocket. So it looks super, super good from a charting point of view. And yeah, I'm expecting it to go much higher because this sell-off, in my opinion, was unwarranted. If you look at the PE ratio for Meta, if you look at the earnings trajectory, if you look at what they're doing with ads and AI and the investments they're doing, for me, it's a super undervalued company here compared to all the other Mag 7 plays. If you guys look at what Google's been doing lately, it has been non-stop exploding. I believe at some point Meta's going to look like this as well. It's just a little bit behind right now. But look at that. Look at that rally. So for anyone out there, anyone in the crypto community saying you cannot make money with stocks, that is not true. I know some guys, they bought Google just a couple of months ago, just a few months ago. They're up over 2x on their money. They've outperformed every crypto pretty much, right? Speaking of cryptos, Tau right now is looking like a potential trade opportunity. I'm not saying you should buy it. I'm not saying anything like that. I'm not saying you should leverage trade it, but it's showing signs of a potential breakout here. It's going to be interesting to see if it comes down, retests this resistance, like flips previous resistance into support, and then maybe we can get a bounce up to the golden pocket. So if you are wanting to trade any coins, then definitely use Blowfin. There's a link for that in the description. That's the exchange I'm personally trading on right now. And like I said, since I am in stables, I'm actually trading this market. That is my main revenue generator right now, is trading. Because I'm out of spot, besides a small bag of Bitcoin. I'm trading this market. I'm shorting it. I'm longing it. And there's some potential opportunities. I mean, on a macro scale here, look at Say. All right. Look at Say here. Say is retesting its April lows. Now, you could argue it's not going to hold, in which case you can just get stopped out your position. You lose money, right? But it seems somewhat attractive here to open a very low leverage long position on Say. Very low. 2x, 1x, 3x, something like that. Have your stop loss set just below this low here. Something like that. Maybe worst case scenario, you lose 10% of your money, right? That's your risk. There's always a risk reward. Always. You might lose 10%, you might lose 5%, you might lose 15%, but what is your reward potential? Well, let's just say that Say just has a dead cat bounce. Nothing special. It just does a little dead cat bounce, and you're on 3x leverage. And let's just say that it bounces up to, who knows? Let's just go on the daily and see. Let's pull some fibs on it. Go from here. Let's assume this is the low. Let's just say it bounces to the 236, 18.9, whatever it is, right? Let's just say that is the dead cat bounce for Say. That's a 47% dead cat bounce. It's a 47% dead cat bounce. On 3x leverage, that's a 2.5x you've just made on Say. Like I said, it might not go your way. This might be a failed trade, but I would be willing to potentially take a 10% hit or 12% hit, whatever it is, if I get stopped out for a potential gain of over a 2x. And obviously, if you wanted, you could just scale out of it on the rallies if it was to do that. You don't have to wait until the exact TP level, your final TP. You should maybe stagger out your selling. But that is a potential opportunity there on Say. There is a chance it loses this, and that could present maybe a short opportunity. If it loses the macro support here, maybe it pulls back down to its absolute low of just under 10 cents. So that is the importance of a stop loss, because if it loses this level, it's coming right down there. You probably get liquidated on leverage, right? probably get liquidated. So that's where your stop loss comes in. But yeah, Say is a potential trade opportunity. I'm not going heavy into it, but I'm just looking at it as a potential opportunity. Tau is a potential dead cat bounce opportunity as well. Kind of breaking out of this formation it's been in. So yeah, interesting stuff. If Tau can come back, retest resistance, previous resistance, and get a bounce, that would be a really nice potential trade up to the 350 level, something like that. But we just got to monitor what Bitcoin does, right? We've got data coming out. Data is going to affect the market. There's a lot going on right now, which could potentially impact this market. Are we shorting? So I have a macro short position open on Bitcoin. I've had it open for some time. But I'm not really shorting altcoins right now because I think there is a potential chance of a dead cat bounce. A lot of alts are kind of in bull flags. I mean, you can't really draw one too well on Say. But you know, a lot of the alts are kind of looking like they're going to get a bounce at some point. I mean, look at Tau. It's kind of been in this channel, in this trading range, and then boom, it's starting to show some signs that it might break out. But you need volume. You need an impulsive move. Otherwise, it's probably just a fake out, right? Another altcoin which was looking quite good was Solana. I know Cryptex in the VIP. He is my technical analyst. He's one of the key brains behind my Discord group. He is right now in a long on Solana. He's pretty bullish on Sol here in the short term. And you can clearly see on the Sol chart. Let me just draw this out. Am I on log? All right, maybe it's on the 4 hour. Wait, let me pull up his chart. Maybe I'm seeing it differently here. Okay, there we go, right. So this is his chart, and this is one of the benefits. This is one of the things you get in the VIP group, right? You get real-time trades from professional traders. So even in a bear market, if you're going sideways, you're going down, you're going to be getting real-time trade opportunities. But yeah, you can see that potential trade there. Potential trade setup. I can't see what time frame he's got it on. There was another one on ETH as well. A lot of these charts kind of look the same right now. Right? Maybe you could draw it. Yeah, like that. For ETH. A lot of these charts look the same. They've had like a point where they've been rejecting at. Rejecting, and then finally they've come up and pushed past it, and that's where you've got a bit of volume, bit of momentum. But this kind of looks like an M pattern on ETH, actually. Kind of does. Let me pull up ETH on the hourly. Yeah. You see, the thing with TA is there's always going to be conflicting signals, right? But I'm looking at Ethereum here. I'm seeing a potential M pattern. I don't know about you guys, but I'm seeing potential M pattern here on ETH. I mean, it's plain and clear. It's obvious. So maybe we get ETH pull back to 2.7K. It's possible. I'm just laying out scenarios here. I mean, you got that bullish break of the resistance we were kind of rejecting at. But that is certainly an M pattern that looks like it's forming. If I've ever seen one. So you just got to be aware of the scenarios. You just got to be aware of the potential scenarios out there. Some people just ignore the patterns, but I'll tell you, I've seen M patterns play out many, many times. I'll show you another example of it. So Fartcoin. Everyone was super bullish on Fartcoin, myself included. But there was a huge M pattern forming that I actually drew out. Let me find it. There we go, right? So I was bullish on Fartcoin, I'll admit, but I also saw the risk of a potential M pattern, and I drew this out ages ago. This was something I put on the chart back in freaking August time, I think. And you can see that that's an example of a macro M pattern playing out to the T. Playing out perfectly. Okay, we're back. Yeah, that played out perfectly on Fartcoin. Again, it's in this range here. So a lot of the alts are in this same kind of structure, guys. They're waiting for a breakout, either to the upside or another continuation of the downside move. I want to get your opinions in the chat. Do you think we get that break to the upside? Do you think we get that shoulder form on Bitcoin? Or do you think we're going lower before we get the shoulder? That's really been the big debate in my VIP group lately, has been when do we get that complacency shoulder? I think a lot of people agree with me that the top is in. And by the way, I called the top on this channel at 126 on the day. You can go back on my streams. Loads of people are giving me grief, saying I'm an idiot. I don't know what I'm talking about. We're going much higher. We'll be at 200K by the end of the year. Look at what happened with Bitcoin. I told you guys there was a solid chance of 126K being the top. And anyone who was there can back me up on the stream. The exact phrasing or the exact words I used was the top is more likely than not in, or there is a solid chance the top is in. Most likely the top is in. That's the phraseology of what I was saying. Anyone who was there back then, they can confirm it that I was saying that. But even the people who didn't believe the top was in then, they probably believe it now. And everyone thinks we're going to get this complacency shoulder. Everyone thinks we're going to get this kind of lower high formation, just like what we had, last cycle. This kind of final get out for the people still bag holding. I just think it's risky to wait for it. Like it's risky to rely on a complacency shoulder because you don't know. You might go lower first before you get the complacency shoulder, right? It's not a guarantee that you go up now. And it all comes down to this 74K level, right? Are we going down to 74K and then we're going to make the relief bounce? Or is the relief bounce now and then we're going lower? That's really the big question. But no one can ignore that $74,000 is a massive, massive level for Bitcoin. And to me, it would make the most sense if we were to come down to 74, then get a complacency shoulder, and then go down further to the 200 moving average, which is around 55K right now. I've been longing Fartcoin and SPX. I actually shorted Fartcoin last night and made some gains. I shorted it from the top because it hit the same high pretty much as previously, and it rejected, and it hit the highs of the pattern it's in. It hit the resistance that it's been using previously as resistance, hit the same level and rejected. So I looked at Fartcoin, I shorted it, and I closed it. I closed it in some nice profits, but yeah, Fartcoin had a nice run actually from 18 cents. Had a nice little rally. But it was to be expected. I mean, these coins have been beaten up so much. They're gonna rally at some point. Let me draw that on a bit better though. There we go. So they're gonna rally at some point. Everything that is down 90% will at some point rally. You know, it's funny, you hear people get really excited over a 2x, but it did a 2x from being down 90% or whatever it was. It's not that impressive. It just went straight back to where it was the beginning of the month. I mean, the 10th of November, Fartcoin was at 35 cents. It's gone back to that level, yet for some reason now everyone's euphoric about it. It's like that meme, right, where it shows one face, Bitcoin at 85K in 2024 or whatever, or early 25, and then Bitcoin at 85K the end of 25. It's like a completely different face. Because the same level can feel very different at different times. When we hit 85K here, people were euphoric. People were so happy to be alive. Now we hit 85K here, people are depressed. So it's funny how you can hit the same level, but at different times, because of the context behind hitting it, there's completely different feelings. Just interesting psychology. What about Aerodrome? Let's take a look at the Arrow chart. So Arrow hasn't dumped as much as some other alts have. It hasn't dumped too badly, in all honesty. I would have expected it to come down to the April lows, but it hasn't. So that's certainly a good sign. Let's see in terms of the fibs. Let's take some macro fibs. So with that said, it did lose a macro golden pocket there, which is not bullish. So maybe Arrow is on its way down to 56 cents. You can only assume that because it lost the macro golden pocket. But yeah, Arrow's held up well, which could mean one of two things. That could mean that it's about to have another leg up and it's shown a lot of strength, or it could mean the bears haven't come out the closet yet and they are going to come out and they're going to dump it in line with everything else. That's always the risk. When something hasn't dumped and something is held up, there's always the chance of that's just because the sellers haven't started selling yet, and they will. They just haven't done it yet. I mean, everyone was getting really excited about Morpho because Morpho was just not dumping. It was just not going down. You guys remember? It was holding that $2 level like a boss. Like it was propped up at that level. And I said to people, yeah, it's probably not going to hold this level much longer. The sellers will come in at some point and align it with the rest of the market. Just because it hasn't dumped yet doesn't mean it won't dump. And people were getting really, really bullish about Morpho here, saying it's holding $2 so well. I shorted it. I shorted Morpho when it was up there because it was just looking weird. It was just looking freaking weird to be holding $2 when the whole market was dumping. So I shorted it down, and you can see it's actually aligning itself more with the overall market context now. So eventually these things dump. Usually the things that hold up eventually dump at some point. Another one was Zcash. Zcash was holding up really, really well, but now it's starting to show some signs of weakness here. So even the outperformers in a bear market eventually come down. Yeah, Say's been pretty disappointing. I agree with that. Had a lot of potential, but just hasn't fulfilled it for whatever reason. I just think the market dynamics haven't been favorable to new layer ones. And I think they will be at some point. We just need that liquidity injection. We just need that liquidity to come in, and then we can get that really nice rally. Like, I'm not bearish on all these plays long term. I think a lot of them will come back and do well. I think Bitcoin's going to be here to stay. I think Sui's going to be here to stay. Time will tell, obviously, how they survive the bear market. But I think a lot of these plays, HBAR, Sui, even Casper, Tau, I think a lot of these are going to be here to stay and they're going to do good things. I just think the risks of holding a lot of these right now outweigh the potential reward. I think the risk is great. The risk is huge. When you look at Bitcoin and you look at the fact it lost the 50-week moving average and you look at what typically happens in the months that follow that, it is a big risk to be in spot. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's impossible for us to go up and have a really big rally and go to 150K. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I operate on probabilities. And the likelihood is Bitcoin is going to make a move down to the 200-week moving average at some point soon, relatively soon. Not like in the next few weeks, but in the next few months, I would expect. Next 6 months or so. Some people think this is a bear trap lol. They will hold all the way to the bottom and continue buying, having no money for the bear market lows. Very true. Capital preservation is key. I've told people if Bitcoin goes to 50K, you could buy 2 Bitcoins with 100K. But if you ride your 100K down to zero in a bear market with alts, I mean, you're not going to be able to buy any Bitcoin. So you might as well preserve it and then be able to buy a couple of Bitcoins potentially if it goes down to that 200 week. Now, it is creeping up. So maybe it gets to 60K, 64K, something like that. But I just think this move to the 200 week is going to happen. I really do. It's going to happen. Could we have a bounce first? Yes, but it's going to happen. And I'm personally waiting for that. I've told you guys my 2 clear parameters, my buyback clauses. One of my buyback clauses is for Bitcoin to come down to the 200. I'll buy into Bitcoin and alts if that happens. My other is if we get an impulsive move above the 50 week. That is what is also required for me to buy back in. 2 clear rules. Anything in between is just noise. And anything in between for me is a trader's market, and I'll be trading those zones. And people on the VIP are going to be getting those trades. The people on the bundle are going to be getting those trades, plus additional trades, plus my scalps. And they're going to be getting it all in real time on the copy trading. So highly, highly recommend the bundle. It's never going to be this cheap ever again. It's ridiculous. These offers here are absolutely insane. Basically offering you lifetime VIP for less than $1,000. There's been people who have been in the VIP for 1 month and they've made 6 figures from being in for 1 month. And I'm giving you lifetime access for less than 4 figures. For 3 figures, you get lifetime VIP. But the big one that I personally recommend is the big bundle. That's lifetime mentor tier, so even more elevated than the VIP. That's lifetime one-to-one coaching, copy trading, direct access to me, direct access to Cryptex. And yeah, that is really where the value's at. And you're getting up to 60% off basically on these options, which is insane. Never thought I'd be doing a discount this big. In fact, I didn't want to do it. But Cryptex was really telling me, you got to do a discount. Everyone's doing a discount. TradingView's doing a discount. So I was like, okay, fine, if we have to. But I did not want to do this sort of a discount because it feels like I'm devaluing some of these memberships a little bit. So count yourself lucky. You can use the code Black Friday at checkout by hitting the first link in the description, and you can get into any of the options on a huge, huge discount. And it expires on Friday. All right, guys. Appreciate everyone tuning in. I've got some meetings to attend with some of my bundle clients. So I've got to get going to prepare for those. But I appreciate all of you being here. We'll keep our eye on the markets today in the Discord. We got the unemployment claims at 5:30. That's really going to be the final determining factor for the rate cut in December. We're going to see if we get it or if we don't. So keep your eye on that. Keep your eye on the Bank of Japan decision as well. 50-50 split pretty much right now. That's causing a little bit of worry for people regarding liquidity in the markets, because if the Bank of Japan raise rates, you're going to see a bit of a sucking of liquidity out of the markets.